Ever since human beings developed the capability of speech, we've been telling each other stories. So when we existed as hunter-gatherers with very limited technology, very limited tools, we would gather around fires and talk to each other, communicate to each other, give each other information. We all had different experiences during the day, but the group could learn from all of the individual experiences of each person, and it was done vocally. So people just love stories, and the story I'm going to talk to you about is one of abrupt climate change and the risks that humanity faces from abrupt climate change. So what is different, what's prompted my video here is that a few days ago, David Wallace-Wells, who writes for the New York Magazine, wrote this article, the Uninhabitable Earth. So famine, economic collapse, a sun that cooks us, what climate change could wreak sooner than you think. Okay, now you as the public, you as politicians, you as most scientists, in fact, you as even most scientists that study climate change, because we live in a world of specialists where people, in order to succeed in life, have to be narrowly focused on a very specific field, and they'll make incremental advances and improvements in that field, yet they don't have so much time to think of the big picture, to communicate to other scientists, to other climatologists, to atmospheric physicists, to sea ice people, to glacier people, to oceanographers, to meteorologists. All of these different fields are individually being looked at by very, smart people, but they're not making the connections between all of the different parts. So this is a very significant article because it's been widely disseminated, and already it's being attacked as being overly alarmist. And I have to laugh because I've been trying to get these messages out to educate the public on the serious risks from abrupt climate change. And here this article comes along and it talks about all of these things that I've been talking about for 5 or 6 or 7 years. But of course, the climate system is very, very rapidly changing. So there's a lot of things that are happening which, well, we know they're all happening faster than expected. So anyway, so the point of this video is to talk about this original article, to talk about some of the scientists who have been interviewed for this particular article, to talk about some of the feedback on Twitter and Facebook and other avenues, other venues in the last few days, and to really say, is this an alarming article? It certainly is. Is it alarmist? I would argue no. In fact, it doesn't even delve into a lot of the things that are happening on our planet that are wreaking havoc on ecosystems and causing immense changes, many of which will be irreversible very soon. So let's go into this article. Okay, so there's a bunch of different things. So peering beyond scientific reticence. Okay, many scientists they haven't come out and been able to actually say or to vocalize or even understand. First of all, they haven't understood how serious the risks are when you consider the big picture and join all the dots, because they're not systems people. They're specialists. They're like a pawn on a chessboard or a bishop or a knight. A piece on a chessboard, they don't know, they're just a piece on the chessboard, and they have a certain movement and a certain capability of affecting the rest of the board, but it's the chess master that is controlling all the pieces, that are looking at all the pieces, trying to see the interactions and fitting them together, that really understands what's going on. And most people, like I say, are specialists. It's no different in climate. So, you know, it's worse than you think. There's no question. It's not worse than I think, okay? I and some other systems people that have been looking at trying to join the dots and see how the climate system is evolving. Nothing in here is new to me. But, you know, if you're anxious about global warming being dominated by fears of sea level rise, you're barely scratching the surface. Okay, this is even within the lifetime of a teenager today. I would argue within the lifetime of an 80-year-old today. The changes that are happening in the climate system are happening so fast. As long as you can hold on, you know, and stay alive for 5, 10, 15 years, you will see unbelievable changes in climate that have not been experienced by any human up to this stage. This is the way we're heading. It's not necessarily what has to happen. Okay? Think of you know, what we're trying to do. What I'm doing here is I'm looking at where we are now, what's happened in the past, and where we're heading to go in the future, given business as usual. And we can't tolerate business as usual because we're going to end up in very dire and dark places. So, you know, sea level rise, rising oceans are bad, coastlines inundated, cities flooded, but things are a lot worse than this. We're reaching states close to the equator where, or in the Middle East, for example, where lands are close to uninhabitable. It's just too hot. The humidity is too high. The temperature is too high. The combination of the two is not conducive to humans being outside, or other mammals for that matter, because, you know, with us, when we go outside, we sweat, and that keeps the core body temperature down. And if it's 100% humidity and 35 degrees Celsius, the wet bulb temperature is what the term is. We cannot dissipate heat, and we can only be outside for a few hours. Our body heats up, and our system starts shutting down, and we die very quickly within a day or so. So there's billions of people right now that live in these regions, and if you just look at the projections, the conservative projections of the IPCC, then these people won't be able to live in these regions in a short number of years. The North Pole, the Arctic, is incredible. We've had incredible warmth there. The sea ice is being slaughtered. The snow cover is being slaughtered. The whole Arctic region is becoming darker because we're losing snow and ice. There's a seed vault in Norway on Svalbard, a global food bank. It's called the Doomsday Vault. You know, seeds are collected from around the world and go into this vault, and it's supposed to protect humanity or allow humanity to recover from a massive loss of food crops. You know, it's been there about 10 years, and it flooded out because these huge temperatures in the region thawed the permafrost and water went into the entrance. Luckily, things weren't damaged. The permafrost in the Arctic has huge amounts of carbon that has been frozen. As it thaws out, it's broken down by bacteria. In the absence of oxygen, methane is produced. Methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas, 34 times as powerful on a century time scale, 86 times. On a 2-decade time scale, what it doesn't say here is 150 to 200 times more powerful on a year or two time scale, which matters when the methane is coming up in the Arctic. Okay? Every day we're getting more and more very dire stories on climate change, and they're not projections and they're not models. What they are is observations of different systems on the planet. You know, right now it's a crack in the Antarctic ice shelf, Larsen C. The state of a piece of ice the size of Delaware is about to break off All it needs is the jet stream to come south a bit, and those winds will tear it off the shelf. It's going one of the biggest icebergs ever. Okay, now how much of this, there's always a question, we're fooling ourselves. Is it related to climate change? Is it not? Is it a natural process? The climate system is reorganizing. The way heat is transferred on the planet is reorganizing. We've changed the chemistry of the atmosphere and the ocean, and everything is changing in the climate system. So weather events or things that are happening are all happening under the umbrella of climate change. So the wrong question to ask is it affected by climate change? Okay, the assumption is just about everything is affected by climate change. You know, to what severity is it affected? Okay, so people can only handle so much information, and we deal with things, you know, we kind of try to push things out of our mind that bother us, or we, you know, things come out in different ways. So there's a huge number of zombie movies, Mad Max dystopias, things like that. There's a movie coming out called Geostorm, which is going to, it's unfortunate because we are at the stage where we need to apply so-called geoengineering technologies, whether they be solar radiation management or carbon dioxide removal. We need to apply all of these things to try to stabilize our climate system. And this movie called Geostorm is those things going awry and will make people be even more against them. So, you know, we're a very weird species. We have people that don't acknowledge climate change even exists. We have people that, we have some of the most powerful companies in the world spending millions upon millions of dollars to throw doubt on the science of climate change. We have people that think all humans will be extinct in less than 10 years. And there's a large following of those people. It doesn't matter what we do now. It's too late, they think. There's nothing we can do. I'm not one of these people, okay? If we continue as we're continuing, then I don't think there's any future for humanity on this planet. You know, it'll all be over. When? I don't know. You know, how many decades, or by the, you know, end of the century or whatever, because there's so many things exponentially increasing. There's weak points are being reached, the system's going to collapse. But saying it's calling for an extinction is a completely different thing, I think. You know, lots of people would disagree with me. So we talk about scientific reticence. You know, if scientists aren't going to stand up on the top of buildings and yell at the top of their lungs for action to be taken, for the public and the world to recognize the risks from climate change, and I don't know who will, because they know what's going on better than anybody else. Things are not linear. They're not proceeding in a linear fashion. Everything is going exponential. Okay, and I like this. Maybe the smallness, 2-degree increase doesn't sound bad. You know, a 5-degree increase in average temperature is a difference between 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers of ice on top of you and what we have now. Okay, 2 degrees is huge. You know, this was considered a safe guard rail or guard band, 1.5 being aspirational. Think of Paris. Those numbers don't excite the public too much because we experience, you know, much bigger changes than this on a day-to-day basis. The largeness of for example, 1 trillion tons, almost 2 trillion tons of carbon in the Arctic. It's released. What happens? Well, it would happen to dwarf what's in the atmosphere right now. Abstractness. What does 400 parts per million mean? What does going to 410 mean? It's a difficult problem. It's a wicked problem is what people say. So there's all of these different things that are happening, but we need to do the best we can in understanding the science. The science will change. And, you know, this is a schedule, in other words. You know, these aren't just scenarios of what may or may not happen. This is a schedule. There's certain things that we know, and we're heading in a certain direction, and we can expect things to happen. So I didn't get as far as I thought in the first video. I'm going to be doing a number of videos on this, so you know, please make sure you read these stories that I show and think about them. Thank you.